Hello everyone, my name is Steven Zapata, greatest living draftsman, and I've got a new course out, Design Fundamentals. It's meant to help you understand design on a comprehensive and principled level and show you how to run projects that build skills and contribute to a portfolio. Maybe you want to be a concept artist, an illustrator, a fine artist, or just the most badass hobbyist on your block. Whatever you want to do with art, if you ever want to do anything vaguely original, you need to understand design. You need a process and a mental framework for getting to something new rather than just copying what you've seen before or photos of stuff that already exists. If you do want to improve at design, that process, that mental framework, it does exist. It's based on the principles of design, and I've spent the past year, is it more than a year? Oh my God, this took forever. I've spent the past whatever putting this course together, full of my insights into the elements of art and the principles of design. Across 10 assignments in this course, you will be concepting your own imagined video game. You'll come up with the overall idea, you'll pick a theme, you'll write a treatment, and you'll design assets that give you a chance to practice all these new concepts. And at the end, all of these individual assignments come together into a cohesive final image. When I designed this syllabus, I wanted to make the course I wish I had taken back in my first year of school. And I did. If I was asked to teach Design 1 at Art Center today, I would just play these videos as my lectures, and this is the same cohesive, practical, fun assignment I would make the students do all semester. Also, just like a college course, everyone gets my feedback on all 10 assignments. In the exclusive course community, you can post your work to get feedback from me and your peers, and there's even a video workroom that's always open so you can hang out together while you work, and to celebrate the course launching, it's on sale, so get it while the getting's good. If you're interested in my first course, Form from Imagination, it is also on sale. So if you're interested, go to zapatacourses.com/design fundamentals and check it out. And I will see you on the other side of the mystical gateway of design. Greetings, greetings. It's the incredible power of streaming over the internet. Over the internet. Over the internet. Over the internet. Let me see. I think I need to be a little louder. Or I need to get this a little closer to me. Hello to Eugen Borken. Hello to Aki. Hello to Lars. Hello to Lak Asalam. Baran. Pixel Art Journey, Matej Koyar. Hello, hello. Cody. Hello, hello. Let's honor some patrons real quick. Since last stream, we had, let me check. Let's see who signed up. We had Joshua Burrows and Celine Vera join. Thank you so much. Some notes here. Joshua Burrows, Celine Vera. You know, usually people's stories are separated, but today yours are intertwined because you are both the ravenous hellhounds that I keep on a thick chain link leash and who protect me from all the dangers of the world. Are you rabid? Yes. Do you have cool, fiery details coming out from your furnishings? Yes. Yes, you do. Do your eyes glint and gleam with a sulfurous, ember-hot blaze whenever you see the people who would threaten me? Yes, you do. Of course you do. And for that, I thank you. Thank you so much, you two, for being my ravenous, protective, vanguard hellhounds, always on the lookout for any danger. Do you guys bark on stream sometimes? Yeah. Yeah, you do. Is it a problem? Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you again, Celine and Joshua. Thank you so much. Hello, Miguel Ramirez. Greetings from New York. Oh no, Aki. Aki says our cat fell from our balcony. He's okay, but vet said he might have broken his pee-pee? Am I interpreting that right? Is that a typo? His pee-pee? What does that mean? His pelvis? You don't mean his... Can a cat break their pee-pee? I'm trying not to laugh because I'm sure it's very distressing, but I'm wishing him well. I'm glad he's okay. What do you mean he broke his pee-pee? Steven, when you make a video about great artists being freaks of nature, God, that would piss a lot of people off. I mean, people know that. People know that. I really don't know. It's like people do inherently sort of unconsciously know that just from the zeitgeist, just from general consciousness of artists. But I'm not really too sure how much good it would do for me to make a video about it. I don't think that's actually discouraging, as I've talked about here many times, but I think a lot of people would interpret it as extremely discouraging. So I don't know. I would need to be really sharp on an angle where I know it's not discouraging people. And of course, right when I start, the lawnmowers are getting to work right across the street, so I might mute for a while and just play some music and work, and then I'll come back once they quiet down a bit, but we will see. It's okay to just focus on the work sometimes. It is. Sami says, hi, can I ask how long the discount will last for the new course? Until my wife goes into labor. You can find a more detailed explanation in my video Big Life Update, which is quite recent. As soon as my child arrives, the sale is over. Man, Aki says it was indeed his pee-pee. That's crazy. God. I don't even want to know the details, honestly. How could you break your pee-pee from a... Oh my God. Poor cat. Poor cat. Lax says, Steven, drawing golden armor right now. Quick tips on how gold material works. Well, first off, look at gold. But the biggest thing that I think most people miss is that one of the main things that metals do in terms of the physics of light is that they color the specular reflection towards their color. So whereas most materials, when they specularly reflect, they reflect the color of the light source, right? So if it's a blue light source, you're gonna get a blue specular reflection. If it's a white light source, you're gonna get a white specular reflection. Gold is gonna color the specular reflection towards gold, and a very intense gold. So don't let the specular go all the way to white, as tempting as that may be. And usually you're gonna do that because you feel like it's not bright and shiny enough. That is a problem to be addressed by dropping the overall value. A lot of people make things like gold way too bright. That makes it look like gold leaf instead. Like kind of the value range that I have here on this like buzzard head is actually a better starting value range for gold than something really bright. You generally want it a bit darker, and then you want to lay a few light speculars on top of that. Bunny's trying Leonardo. Excellent. Enjoy. Vadim says, since it has infinite paper, how do you export your drawings? Or you don't? Yeah, you can export the whole canvas. You see if I go up to File, I can do Export, and I can choose Everything, and it just selects everything, and then it'll export that as a PSD, JPEG, whatever. Obviously, as long as the file format supports that given size. Or you saw up here, if I go to File, Export, you hit, you can zoom out and you can just select a region. So I can just pick these two, and then it'll give me export settings to export that as a JPEG, PSD, whatever. You can see there that it says the export will be 4,000 pixels wide, 3,800 pixels tall, etc., etc. Etc., etc. I hope that lawnmower is not driving you guys crazy. I can see that it's raising the noise floor I can see on my OBS feed that it's raising the noise floor quite a bit, but hopefully the music is kind of canceling it out. Cody with the $10 donation. Thank you so much, Cody. I appreciate it. Morning, Steven, everyone. Bet you thought this was going to be an ad for Steven's art course. Well, you thought wrong. Steven's course is on sale. Thank you, Cody. Thank you as always for paying me for you to do an ad for the sale. I greatly appreciate it. Much love, dude. And yes, the course is on sale. It is deeply, deeply on sale. Incredibly on sale, truthfully and wonderfully on sale until my child arrives, until my son arrives. Which is, woo, we're right there, baby. We are right there. Due date's in 2 days. Could be any second. We're on watch. We're on watch now. Are we all going to be uncles and aunties for the future banker? You wish. That's a title that needs to be earned. I would never hand it out like that. Don't go getting parasocial on me now. I would never discredit the real uncles and aunties by saying everyone on stream is an uncle and auntie. I have my limits. Mel says, but I'm definitely Unc, right? If you need confirmation of official Unc status, you could send me an email. I can't confirm. In that context, I can confirm. You're definitely Unc, Mel, don't worry. Of course you're Unc. You I actually know. I've seen your flesh body. I can confirm that you're not an AI bot that's been sent to psyop me, so. Everybody else remains sus. Jeru says, Steven, any tips for differentiating between pictures you respect and pictures you want to make? You gotta know yourself. You really gotta know yourself. That's not something I can tell you. And in art, you gotta get used to just about everything being something that not someone else can't tell you. You know, you gotta have some opinions. You're gonna have a very hard time being an artist if you don't have any opinions. I'm quite amazed how many people who are deeply interested in art I talk to, who are very emotional about it, very excited about it, but I ask them like, so what do you think is good? Like, what are your opinions? They have no idea. They have no idea. They can't talk about it. We gotta fix that. I don't think it was always that way, you know? You read about the artists of the past, read their letters, their correspondences. I don't know, I think confusion was much less back then. I think people were getting into art because of their opinions. I think people are getting into art for different reasons now. I have all sorts of theories and things like that, but you gotta work on your opinions. It's okay to nurture, this is good, that's bad. This I care about, this I don't care about. It's important work to do. Jordy's here. Kyokusei's here. Jordy, I see you've been streaming a bunch. If anybody's in the market for streams, go check out Jordy and Kyo. They're streaming these days. They're in workshop heaven. They took my last workshop. More people who I know they're real. Or at least it would be much harder for them to be fake. They would have to be really cutting edge AI agents to have fooled me. Really cutting edge. Psychobilly says, I took workshop, but am also a fake person. You fooled me. I don't recognize your handle. I can neither confirm nor deny that you actually took the workshop, since I don't recognize your handle. I always wish people, I'm really bad with handles. I always tell people in workshop, like, use your real name. Also, this is just like a pet thing of mine. If you're trying to like break into the art scene, maybe even especially in a professional capacity, in my opinion, it's like use your real name or a handle that is, for all intents and purposes, that's your name. Like if you're hiding your real name, use one handle and use it everywhere. People who change their name and stuff like that all over when, you know, Instagram, on their portfolio page, taking classes and things like that. I don't think it's the best move. You know, it just makes it harder for people to remember you and to get recognition on your name. And I can't tell you how many times I've made like an important connection because I like joined a Discord with my name and somebody saw in the feed Steven Zapata joined the Discord, and then somebody messages me from that Discord and they're like, oh, it's you. Hey, you're interested in this thing too, huh? Like, and then a real connection is made. If my handle was Cherry Popper 69, you know, obviously my handle from when I was a teenager, they wouldn't make that connection, right? They never would have sent that DM or popped that message in the Discord feed, and I wouldn't have made that connection with that person. Mel says, will you be posting these designs anywhere? They are some of my favorites of yours. These, if I finish them, well, they don't need to be finished. They're almost to a place where some of them could be presented as a sheet of ideations, of concepts. But I would need to work on like these are not, these were the very first ones that I did, so they don't feel like they're in the same world as something like these. I would need to work on them a bit more. Well, once they get to once they don't all need to be super refined or super finished, but if they're consistent, then yeah, they can get shared. These were not actually what I was planning on working on when I sat down. I was just gonna warm up on these, so we might switch to, we might switch to the thing I was planning on doing in a little bit. I just got distracted because I'm liking working on this guy right now. I was gonna work on something, a more structured idea that I had. I wanted to, redo some tasks from old professional work. And I'd picked a couple things that I could poke at. It's something I've been meaning to do for a while, just for myself, for practical purposes. Just because I have so much old pro work that I'm not allowed to share. And, you know, it's a common method to get around that in the industry to like, well, you just, whatever you did for work, you just set aside some time to basically redo it, but different, so that you could put it in the folio, like in the public portfolio. But I don't know. Some people are really good at that. They're really diligent with that, and I ain't. You know, I always have a hard time redoing. But design is so heavily on the brain lately because of the course that I don't know now, and enough time has gone by since I did these things that now I kind of feel like it wouldn't just be redoing. Like, I think I could wind up doing them. I could add some interesting twists, you know, because I've learned a lot in the intervening years. So I want to do that a little bit. How is the comic going? Oh, I haven't worked on it in a while. With everything going on with, you know, having a kid, my life has been in chaos. And not just a kid, you know. So much has been going on. Moving, kid coming, loss in the family and all of that. Finishing the design course. Yeah, I haven't worked on the comic in months now. Hello, Renola Dominguez. Hello, Charlie. Hello, Yuri. Yuri says, Dr. Zapata, you've said before to share our art out of compassion with others. Can you speak more to that? Yeah, well, I think it's one of the best mental places you can be in when you share your work. It can require, in our current era, quite a bit of work to get there, but I think it's very wholesome if you can get there. Give me a second, let me close the door. Yeah, what can I say about it? I guess my top line there, Yuri, is that in the set of possible motivations to do your work, most people in the current era are stuck on 2 or 3, and they haven't even really imagined the whole set of possible motivations that are available for art. There's anything, right? There really is anything, and just most people are caught up with want to get famous, want to get popular, want to make a living off their art because they hate everything else. Like they have no idea that there's possibilities like communion with God or expressing compassion to others. Those are things you can feel in your heart as the most important thing that's happening when you make art. But at this point, you've got to go counterculture to connect with those motivations. At different points in art history, those were more incentivized. They were more normal, more normalized, I think. Just in our current culture, those ideas seem strange or weird. But yeah, I think a lot of people should investigate that more. I think inherently we do share our work somewhere. The core is from a place of compassion, because art it's highly disincentivized in our current culture. No one wants you to do it, basically. The overall culture doesn't want you to do it. Probably some of you are in families that don't want you to do it, right? So you're doing it against the oppressive current of the world. That is oppressive for no good reason, right? So there is a sense in which if you're offering your work at all, you're doing it as this form of outreach against these oppressive things, and you're going to make contact with other people who appreciate that. And so there is a sort of compassionate core there. There's a lot more that could be said about that, but it'd be a very long discussion. There's also a very, I'm not feeling compassionate towards my dogs right now. Feeling a distinct lack of compassion towards the dogs. There's also a really, far out there spiritual version, which I could try to summarize as, don't forget that whenever anyone looks at your art, they need to reconstruct it in the hologram that they live in, right? Like when you make a piece of art, you make an artifact. And depending on your ontological position, you may believe that the artifact itself is a thing in itself. It may exist outside of you, right? So if you were to exit the room, there is something that your drawing is when you are not present in the room to observe the drawing, right? It is some, no one knows what this is, right? This has been one of the hottest debates in the whole history of philosophy, but what the fuck is anything when no one's looking at it, right? Whatever that may be, when someone else looks at your drawing, whenever their physiology interacts with the thing in itself that your art artifact may be, they don't just view the thing in itself. They have to reconstruct the perception of the piece of art in the locked room of their mind. So any art artifact is not actually what you think it is. It is actually a set of instructions that you give to the brain of your viewer, of your audience, to then rebuild your piece of art in their side of existence. That is more intimate than having sex. So you should do that. There is a place you can connect with where you realize that you should only do that wonderfully well, because they're letting you literally drive their brain for a few seconds. And if someone's going to let you do that, you should do it excellently, right? You should do it in the most luxury, most couture, most loving way. That's another way to sort of access the compassionate side. You know, you don't want to abuse their brain with an ugly or evil image. Jordy says, "Hey Steven, can't see one half of your face." That's all right. No one's here to look at my face. I've given up on thinking that anybody cares about production quality anymore. I see it. I see the writing on the wall. I see what succeeds on TikTok and things like that. Cares for production quality have gone out the window. Friggin' AI slop cat channels do better than 99.9% of real artist accounts. So, that no one can see one half of my face, that it's in shadow, who gives a fuck? How's the countdown? Are you at Grand Zero yet with the little one? I wouldn't be here if the countdown was at 0. I would not be here. I'd have to be at the hospital. Any second now. That's all I know. Everything else is up to him. Okay. Give me 1 second, let me mute. Sarah says, "Hi, Steven. Do you think it's a red flag for studios if someone has separate portfolios for illustration, map painting, and graphic design?" No. I've had to wear many hats in order to survive in this economy. No. I don't think studios care about that. They're probably only going to look at the one that's relevant to them, but I don't think they'd see it as a red flag. It might be a problem if that was all mixed together in an unorganized way, but if they're separate, I don't think any studio would care. Digital Artcast says, "I watched a video where they talked about how most artists and creatives fail at art because they refuse to give up." And then he corrects that to grow up. They refuse to grow up. Mostly about things get hard, you give up, you panic, repeat. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's most, but that's got to be a part of it. That has to be a significant part of it. I mean, art's just unlike most other things in life. You know, it's always going to be a marathon. You know, it's something that you're going to have to be able to do through several, you know, world upheavals, you need to carry it with you through multiple personalities that you have, different eras of your life. It's just not like most things, you know? It's not something that you can like get a handle on or make big progress on well, you can make big progress, but there's a lot of other things in life that it's like if you dedicated 5 years to it, people might think like, man, a lot's gonna happen. Like a lot of big things are gonna happen. It's like the number of artists who achieve their dreams or get big payoff after 5 years of effort is very low. Like 5 years is actually quite a low investment time for art. The payoff time for art is on the order of decades. And that's extremely difficult for people. You know, like I said, you've got to be able to stay on the art horse while, you know, People die, you have divorces, you're rich, you're poor, you know, you have good times, you have bad times, you get chronically ill, like everything's gonna fucking happen to you in decades, right? You're not gonna have a steady life for decades. And through all of those upheavals, you need to somehow, irrationally, choose art over and over and over again. So it's a very, very difficult task, very, very difficult task. So I guess I agree that like, yeah, one of the reasons artists fail is because they give up. Things get hard, they panic, they give up. But I don't like the tone of like, isn't it bad that they did that or something like that? It's like, this is an insane thing to ask from a person. Like, I don't judge people who give up at art. For most people who have a story of giving up at art, I come in assuming like you made a perfectly rational decision. Like it makes sense. This weird stuck on supposition that a lot of artists have where it's like, you're a pussy ass bitch if you give up at art. It's like, you're an asshole. And you have no reality, you have no idea what the real world is if you really think that. Like there is no reason to judge someone for giving up at and most people who give up at art are not giving up at art completely. They're giving up at a particular aspect of art, of maybe making it their living or making $1 million off it or launching some big project or something like that. They're usually giving up on that. Most people who love art are never gonna give up on it completely, right? They're gonna keep drawing and painting. They're just gonna do it less, or it's not gonna be linked to these particular goals, you know? I don't know. Well, I do know. Actually, I just explained in great detail how I do know, actually, and I know it very well. And I'm thinking about things better than just about everybody. But yeah, I find it annoying, that tone of like, oh, they're giving up because they get scared. And it's like, yeah, it's art. It's like a statistically nigh unto impossible, very difficult thing to do that has no guarantee of great return. It's like, there's every other beautiful there's lots of other wonderful things to spend your time doing in life, you know? Art's my favorite, right? And I would go to bat for art any day of the week, but I don't think it's right, that tone of like, you failed, you know, you're failing because you give up at art. It's like, goddamn, fuck. It's okay to pick other things. It's okay to have other priorities. You know, that's why I think of art as a demon. It's like, I choose every day to get tangled up with this demon, but I'm under no illusions that I rarely call it an angel. I don't call it the art angel. To me, it tracks much more with a powerful demonic entity than it does an angel. You know, it's going to put you through a lot. It will make demands. It is a cruel mistress. Why does everybody need to feed themselves to that? I don't think so. Steven, advice to become a morning person. I think it would really contribute to my art. I don't enjoy working at night, but it still happens. Marry a morning person. That's the quickest solution. That's what worked for me. Marry a morning person who likes to clang pots and do dishes first thing in the morning. Gordy says, I think your last video hit hard. I see a lot of people talking about the realities of art. Really struck a nerve with people out there. The one, should you quit your job to do art? I mean, I'm glad it struck a nerve. I don't feel like I was saying anything that's actually unknown or unusual. You know, once you make friends with with a bunch of artists and even professional artists, you learn real fast that you spend a lot of time sitting around bitching. You know, it's hard. It's hard as hell. You know, I don't think I was saying anything unknown. But I don't know. I get confused. It's like we all know this. Who out there is operating under the supposition that art is some easy thing that leads to an easy life? Who is like, well, why is everybody's parents fighting them on it if that's the case? Why is everybody like, whoa, that's how you're doing that? Why? We all know that deep down. I don't know where I don't know where the surprise is coming on that stuff, you know. Obviously, I knew that some people were operating under bad assumptions because, you know, I made the video for that reason. But I'm just saying, like, in general, like, I made the video because of that mystery that I have. Just like, where are people getting this tone of, like, I don't know, operating like being an artist is going to be easy on them, right? The career part, you know, the quitting your job over part, right? Like, like drawing can be as easy as you want it to be. You can make the actual act of drawing feel as effortless and easy as you want, but you don't get to control the career and life part in any robust way, you know? Yuri Huang says, we were all cursed. Fetid, rotted, cursed. Beasts. Beasts all over the shop. Gabriel says, this might sound insane, but every time I try to quit art, I end up having the most prolific months of my artistic career. I know that. I think there was something about letting go of the need of being an artist and just connecting with the joy of drawing. Yeah, it's the letting go, right? It's the letting go. However you get to letting go almost always helps with anything that you're doing, you know, because it's the tension, the demanding, grasping tension that we create. That is usually what's fucking us up in the things that we do. That never helps. Hello, Chuck. Thank you, Philip. Lax says, Steven, is the name of your child going to be Alan Watts? No, but that's sweet. I'll put that in the considerations for middle name. I wouldn't mind honoring Alan. Fancy red skull drip. In my world, all enemies are dripped out. When I die, bury me inside the Gucci store. When I die, bury me inside the Louis store. Mike Lima says, it's interesting to hear you talk about how the path to becoming a good artist can take time. I currently have 5 years dedicated to art, and while I feel like I've already dedicated a lot of time to it, I also feel like I have a lot to learn and improve. Crazy. Yeah, art's not like other things. It isn't. And it'll never be like other things. You know, the level for art is always increasing. You know, there's a lot of people today who can do things that most of the old masters could not have dreamed of, right? So when I say old masters there, I mean sort of the academic explanation of the old masters, or the academic definition of the old masters, which is basically any professionally working artist during the time of the Italian Renaissance. When I say the old masters there, I didn't mean like the big three. I didn't mean like Michelangelo, Raphael, and Leonardo. But certainly the level is much higher than it has ever been. If those skills are being put to good use, different question. But certainly the skills are highly elevated and much, much higher on a general level than they've ever been before. So because the skill level goes up and up and up and up and up and up and up, it's always going to be on that longer timeline. Always. It's always going to remain on that longer timeline. Renu says, hello, do you use a Leonardo app right now? Yes. Oh, yes. Karem said, can't imagine what Raphael would think if he saw a modern furry art with the most impeccable lighting and signs of form understanding, perfectly mixing together anatomical elements of humans and cats. It's very likely that Raphael would immediately be like, that's my destiny. That's what I should have been doing. You know? When you look back through the lens of history, it's very clear, like, you can sort of get an intimation of like what old historic personality types would have sort of transitioned into what in the modern era. You know, like you look at someone like Jean-Léon Gérôme and what he liked doing and what he was going for. You assess that personality type and you're like, oh, right. He probably, if he was born today, he wouldn't have been an oil painter. He would have been, he would have become like Ridley Scott. He would have made movies, right? Like he did his oil paintings like a movie director does their job now today. You know, he hired teams and did research and went on location and did tons of research. And, you know, it's just everything sort of tracks one-to-one. And he released his paintings and sent them around the world like a movie. You know, you'd go pay 5 cents to just see one Jean-Léon Gérôme painting in a tent. You know, so it really much more tracked to a movie director than our current thinking of an illustrator or anything like that. Someone like a Frank Lloyd Wright, you can tell he probably would have been a weeb, right? Like he probably would have been a sucker for anime and just would have been a total otaku, something like that. If you look at his biography and the things he was actually most interested in and what were his passions and things like that. Zhang says, at which point in art skill do people generally get jobs on ArtStation? There's no answer for that. That's not how art works. You know, art isn't like other careers where you hit a certain amount of qualifications and then you're gonna get a job because there's this many jobs always in demand and things like that. No, it's not even really about skill. Getting a job in this industry off of a place like ArtStation is just, when do you happen to have the next thing a company needs? That's it. That could be at any skill level, in any style, at any point in your career. That's it. You know, companies don't hire artists because they like fucking having them around. companies are run by CEOs and money men. And I don't know if you've ever met them, but they hate artists. And I know a lot of people haven't met them, but it is true that they hate artists. I wish I could say otherwise, but you know, once you've been in the room with these people a few times, you know, they'll tell you they hate artists. They're happy to say it. You know, these are people who, you know, they have fuck you money. They don't care what they say. So they don't hire artists because they like having them around, or like they especially feel like they need them on file or anything like that. It's just, when did you happen to make the next thing they need basically by accident? For some reason, what you were doing a month ago happens to be the next thing that company needs. You're hired, and that's it. That's the only time people get jobs. That's the only time people would ever get jobs. and there's no controlling that, you know? Bye, Kyo. Have a good evening. Oof, Woofo. Woofo says, Steven, why would money people hate artists? Aren't artists their employees and the ones making them money? Oh. Oh, honey. Oh, dear. That's not to say that they don't love art in their personal lives. But, and some money people, obviously, they are, you know, they're good eggs. And they do genuinely love art. But for most money people don't come from creative backgrounds, and they don't have any connection with creativity. You know, they have an MBA. You know, they learned finance. After enough time has gone by, it is tragically common for the money people who run companies to see artists as the irreducibly human in the process that is always in their goddamn way, right? We aren't. I'm just saying that that's how they tend to view artists, because most companies are not asking artists to do their sort of real artist thing. You know, the real artist thing is pacing in a room with no real idea of a deadline or a deliverable, reading books, looking at other people's paintings, crying, thinking about your past trauma, and then having ecstatic meditative experiences until the muse drops like a dove onto the crown of your head, the perfect idea. And then you obsessively and unconsciously finish that idea in an ADHD burst in 1/40th of the amount of time that was actually allotted to you to do the idea. So money people who live off of deadlines and projections and deliverables and milestones and checkpoints are the natural enemy of such a system. So you don't get hired to do that. They hire artists at a point in their life where the artist can sort of jive with them and go with the milestones and the checkpoints and the deliverables and all of that. And this inherently makes the CEO think of the artist as a sort of cog, a sort of replaceable gear, right? They're having the artist match styles and do notes and meet deliverables. And just inherently, it makes the CEO think of them a gear. And more insidiously, it makes the artist think of themselves. It makes the artist think of themselves as a cog in the machine, as another gear that can be replaced. But they aren't. The artists can lie to themselves, hype themselves up into that, but very few artists are actually that. So the eventually, even if they squeeze themselves like a spring, to try to be, yes, art is just a blue collar endeavor, they eventually boing and they spring out. And then even within the confines of the company, they try to become the bohemian, walking around waiting for the muse, crying kind of artist, which is what most artists actually are at their core. And the CEOs will always view this, again, as irreducibly human, only in the way, unacceptable, just making sure that they don't lose, to them, that just ensures that they're wasting money, right? CEOs don't know what it's like. The money people don't know what it's like to just experience the ecstatic satisfaction of doing something good. That's not what they give a fuck about. They don't care about something being good on its own. To a CEO, to a money person, something is good when it made money. And the actual product doesn't goddamn matter, right? Like, it's I know there's a lot of good things about Roblox, but just to say, like, to a money person, and I don't know who made Roblox. They might be a dyed-in-the-wool artist, right? They probably were to make such a thing. But to a money person, it's like, Roblox is an excellent product because it makes a shit ton of money. But every individual aspect of Roblox, to most artists, is going to be goddamn unacceptable. The UI barely works. It's designed like shit, that nothing is intuitive. Good luck if you're not a 4-year-old. Good luck figuring out what the hell any of these games even mean, right? It looks terrible. It looks like truly, truly terrible. Every individual aspect is totally unacceptable to the artist, but it's a world-class, wonderful product because it makes money. And that is how CEOs think. So they're always going to see the artist who would imagine something like Roblox as being more refined, looking more beautiful. And it's just an irreducible human problem that actually doesn't benefit them in any way. That was a good tear. Thank you, Omar, for indulging me. You gave me $20. You are in first place. God bless you, buddy. This is all just going into the bank of money that I owe you for lunch. You're putting me in a bad situation. See, I need to have a running tally for this because one day we're going to be at lunch and I'm going to say, all right, I owe you a lot in stream money. And then you could just say any number. And since I haven't been counting all of this, I'll have to believe you. You could say that you've donated, $5,000 to me in stream money. And I'll have to accept that that's true. Thank you, Danny. Gabriel says, the first time I needed to use AI for a commercial job, I told them I didn't know how to use the tools. I knew instantly I wasn't going to be considered for the role. It was a very sad wake-up call. That sucks, Gabriel. I hate hearing that. Fuck that. My motivation for pursuing freelance hasn't recovered. Yeah. Yep. Why would it? That sucks. That sucks. I might go so far as to say that sucks dick. Yep. I said it. I might go that far. It's bullshit, man. I'm sorry, Gabriel. God, that makes me mad just hearing that story. I'm not cut out to be chill about things like that. I'm really not. I know most people in the chat love AI, but I have to say I'm a hater, personally. Again, I know based on everything you guys have told me, 99% of the chat loves AI, but I'm the 1% that it's not for me. It's not for I know that you guys all love Ballerina Cappuccina or whatever it is. Trololololo. I know to you guys, that's the height of art. You know, I'm not here to tell you what is or isn't art. I'm just saying for me, it's a little different. Black Sun says, I love AI. Triple Jaws says, you cannot rage bait me, Steven, even though I just did. Andrew Ray says, I love AI. Warhabit says, I do love AI. Or K90 says, which children in here brought up Roblox? I did. I brought up Roblox. Smooge says, I love AI. Karem says, I love AI so much that I stopped being a person and all my messages here are all AI because I don't need myself anymore. Yeah, I think that's a lot of people on here. Andrew Ray says, I like making shit with my hands and farming, LOL. Nice. Just farming and listening to art streams on YouTube on your phone while you're farming. I love it. I love it. Yuri says, Steven, for the course, how did you arrive at choosing the design assignment of building a video game inventory screen out of all other possibilities? Oh, I mean, I had a lot of other ideas, but that to me was the, well, at least of the ideas I had, obviously, right? But out of all the ideas I had and sort of things that I whiteboarded, that was the sweet spot of like, it lets me teach the fundamentals in a straightforward way. It's not overwhelming. You can do it in a reasonable number of assignments. It allows for creativity on a very broad level, but forces you to scope it down to something that someone like me can reasonably critique, right? Because if I was just taking if I was just taking like design decks for video games raw from people, I'd never get through it. You know, it would be too much of an onslaught of design work of all different sorts where there wouldn't be any apples to apples and like consistency. So it let people do kind of whatever they want, but was a non-contrived way to scope it down. Like it scoped it down well, but it still made sense. And also the other big part of the sweet spot was it was something that I felt confident a lot of people in my audience were into. I know that a lot of people in my audience like video games and are big fans of video games, and a lot of people in my audience got into art because of video games as a kid. That was me, you know, so I know that that's becoming a common thing in the era. I knew that that's not everybody in my audience. I knew that was naturally, there was some percentage of my audience that actually doesn't care about video games and doesn't want to even play in that realm or pretend that way. So I knew I was sort of maybe turning off that part, but I thought if I am gonna pick something that's gonna have to turn off part of my audience, probably the video game thing is like, it probably on the pie chart of my audience was the biggest slice. So yeah, that's how I picked that one. the biggest challenge with a design course is keeping the scope down for feedback, because the difficult thing about design is that you're not actually designing if you're not doing something that you don't understand, right? Like that is what design is. If you're doing something that's just A plus B equals C, you're not designing, you're illustrating, right? Like the nature of design is problem solving. So you're only ever actually problem solving if you're asking yourself a genuine question. That's the hard thing about teaching design, is you need to put the students in a situation where they need to genuinely be confused. You can't fake it. If you try to fake it and you just say, you know, all right, everybody put a pauldron on their character and it's shaped like this, it's like you're lying. That's not design, right? You're not asking a real question and solving it. So that is very hard to teach outside of a structured classroom setting. So the big question there was designing an assignment module that scoped correctly to make it possible. And I think we pulled it off. Naka says, damn, Steven, you know more about AI memes than the average guy in his 30s. Is that part of the parenthood training? No, I just, I'm chronically online at this point. Stream keeps me young. People are always tuning me into things here on stream. I'm also just interested in culture, you know. Most of the like YouTubes that I watch are like internet culture commentators and things like that, and you know, that in particular is also like I've gone on TikTok and just searched AI, you know, to know what's going on. So you're gonna bump into that stuff fast if you're doing stuff like that. OKM says, Steven, how do conceptual performance artists practice their craft and even make money? Most artists of that type, and really most artists who are not illustrators or in the commercial design work, grants. They make their money through grants. They don't sell their work usually. They a big part of a conceptual and performance artist life, and so many other kinds of artists, is you're not just always making work, right? Any art career always involves a surprising amount of admin that you wouldn't know until you live that life, right? So for them, most of the admin side is residencies and grant writing. So they apply to residencies constantly, and they do grant proposals constantly. A residency, they could be short, they can be long, but they feed you, they board you, and you make work in that time. Some of them come with a stipend, so you get paid a little bit. And grants, you're getting paid, right? Ostensibly, only a portion of the grant is for your own personal survival, and the rest of it is supposed to go to the art or something, is supposed to get reinvested in the art and things like that. But conceptual and modern and performance artists, that's most of their living, is they get grants. That's part of the big cycle of nonprofits and arts organizations. That's kind of why most of them live in only a few big cities, because you need to have access to mingle with the people who are giving the grants. And yeah, just most people don't sell their art. They can't, you know, who's gonna, how do you buy a piece of performance art, right? Only a museum can do that. And buying it looks like, you know, if you look at like Marina Abramovich's The Artist is Present, a piece of performance art where Marina Abramovich just sat in the MoMA here in New York and just let people sit in front of her and do whatever they wanted to her. And she's always inviting chaos whenever she does that, and chaos naturally ensues. But what would it mean to buy that piece of art? Well, you don't. You buy it, the artist performs it, and then what you have is what you bought is documentation, like video and photography, and proof that it happened at your museum, right? But there is no actual sort of fucking artifact of the piece to put up in a plexiglass box, you know? Yeah, Gabriel says, bro, the admin, even being a YouTube streamer, bro, requires an ungodly amount of admin. I was not prepared for the admin. Yep. There is no escaping it. Every kind of art career, there's a hidden admin aspect. It's a little different for each niche, and it's much more than you would ever believe until you become that kind of artist. Always. I'm going to run to the restroom real quick. I'll be right back. Thinking about these guys. Wonder if I should switch gears or just keep poking at these guys. They are fun. They're fun to draw. Have you seen that one video with the AI girlfriend? I've seen many videos of people struggling with AI girlfriends, or maybe the opposite of struggling. I personally see it as, even if they're like, I'm so in love, we're so happy together, it's like, brother, you are struggling. Also girls. I've seen a couple videos of girls with AI boyfriends and the dramas therein. Almost all of them seem to be, currently, I can't imagine this will continue forever, but most of the drama is around, you know, you had the AI boyfriend and then you hit the ChatGPT memory limit and he got wiped, and this ruins their life. I have sympathy for the life situation that would make someone seek comfort in a false creature, but again, I know from the stuff that you guys have said to me on streams that you all love it. You know, I know that you guys are all looking forward to AI girlfriends and being able to get them to take their clothes off and things like that. I know for me, it's just not for me. I think it makes sense personally to just prioritize reality and human beings. I don't see any problem with that. People act like, in the online debates, people act like that's a bias. It's like, if you were gonna have a bias for what's actually happening is probably a good one. You know, you're gonna get untethered from reality if that's not your fucking bias. Bendick sends me 250 knock. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate it. Bendick says, thanks for all the great videos over the years, especially the video Importance of Joy in Art Making. Oh, I'm glad you liked that one. Made me realize how much I had been joylessly grinding and slowly finding my way back to having fun with the, I'm going to assume art was meant to be at the end there. I'm very happy to have helped, truly. That's why I make those videos. I've got more videos like that in the works. I've got some scripts going that are trying to go back to the foundations of the channel. A series, you know, not just one script I'm working on. I'm working on a series. So there's going to be more of that coming up. I really want to start refreshing some of that, the base stuff. Maj says, can you give us examples of the problem solving in design and the follow-up questions we ask, like exercises to understand more? Well, I would be remiss to not mention that I did just put out a design fundamentals course that covers all of this in great depth. So if you want to check that out, go look at the link in the description. That explains how to think about all of this, the follow-up questions that you should ask. Just to shorthand it for you, are always about the elements of art and the principles of design. And the design course goes into great detail about each of the elements of art and each of the principles of design and how to think of them. And then the course focuses on teaching you how to start up a project, how to create a project that actually has design constraints on it, and then react to those design constraints and runs you through it. But you need constraints, you know, that's the big thing. You know, it's hard to say anything in abstract about it. You really got to have some, the big thing is you've got to have some constraints on you, or else you're not really designing, you know. Designing is working to criteria. It can't just be totally random, you know. Not that anything I'm not sure anything random is truly possible, but I really like the mystery of color, your armchair talks. The deep end. I love doing that. There's so many fun things to do in life. It's nice having all these little projects to run. And I love just the deeper philosophical questions that art opens up. What exactly does it mean to see a color? It's a huge question. There is actually a philosophy of color that is quite interesting. I find it interesting, and I also find it interesting how many artists don't care. You know, it's like your vocation is visual perception, and you don't care about the philosophy of visual perception. I've always found that confusing, but to each his own, I suppose. For the record, I do think that Mary learns something when she steps out of the room. Oh no. Omar, you got pushed by Bendik. Man, how much is 250 knock? Let's look at the... I gotta delete this top fans thing. This is no good. Yeah, he beat you. He got a lot of XP for that dono. Looking bad out here, Omar. Cody, you're in third, but for me, for some reason, you're still looking better than Omar. Gotta say. But what can she possibly learn when she comes out of the room? The actual feeling of seeing color? I feel like this problem is people making it more complicated than it needs to be. She's never seen red. So I think that for a lot of people, my interpretation is that the argument has come down to a highly academic, semantic argument about epistemology. It's about what does learning mean and what things can be learned, right? Follow me there. I think that's what most people are debating, right? It's like they're debating more about the science that occurs in the room and what we can or cannot say is learned in the world. And I actually think that misses the point. I do think that for me, that misses the point of the question. She's never seen red, right? The academic aspect of what can be learned and what we can say is learnable is utterly uninteresting to me. It seems, and I am much more of an emotivist in my philosophy, to me, emotionally, it just resonates that she's never seen red. She knows everything about red. We all agree that within the context of the experiment, she's never seen it. Something happens when she sees red for the first time. Something must be learned. And I don't want to give recourse. Sometimes people start talking about things she could have done in the room, right? People start saying things like, well, if she really knew everything there is to know about red in the room, then she could have made a machine that stimulates her neurons such that it produces the effect of red. It's like, yes, I agree she could have. But the moment that machine stimulates their neurons and produces the effect of seeing red, to me, that is the same thing, essentially, as her stepping out of the room. That is the moment of seeing red for the first time. So I'm wiping that out of the possibility. I'm not talking about the possibility of her finding a cheat code in the room to seeing red. I'm saying you've either seen red in your life or you haven't. That's the important part of the thought experiment to me. The part of the thought experiment that debates what is learning and what things can be learned, I actually think misses the fucking point of the question. But whenever philosophy resolves down to, I think that we're debating different points, it's usually insoluble, right? It's the same thing with free will, you know? The compatibilists and the determinists are always talking past each other, both saying we're debating different points and we can't even agree on the grounds of the discussion. Stefan says, Steven, your surprise at seeing many artists uninterested in the philosophy of art echoes my own surprise at how many scientists aren't at all interested in the philosophy of science. For context, I'm a biologist. Yeah, I don't know any. I don't know any scientists, but I've heard intimations of that from like science podcasts and things like that. And as to whatever capacity it's true, I would feel the same way. It's like, how are you studying something like biology and seeing the miraculous inner world of cells and things like that and not being elevated to a philosophical question? You know, again, to each his own, I suppose, but. Andres says, hey, Steven, congrats on the amazing news. Oh, thank you. I've been wanting to buy your design course, but I can't find any of your design work online anywhere I can look. Unfortunately, these days, this is the place. You can look at the design work that you see me doing on tons and tons of streams. There's a lot of streams where I do design work and things like that. I have a lot of professional design work I wish I could post and can't because of NDAs. I was actually talking about this earlier on stream, that something I want to sit and do on stream, start doing on stream in the near future is redoing some old pro work so that I have a version of it that I can share, things like that. I can show you stuff I've designed that I can't show you the concept art that I did, but I can show you the final result. Where could I find some stuff? I'll just search. Let me look for. I'm gonna try and pick them random. Oh yeah, like this. Like, oh yeah, there's a bunch here. So this is stuff I did for Elder Scrolls Online. This is not my work. I can show you the final assets that were made by others for the game. Who knows? Let's see, maybe some of these, they posted the concept art. That would be nice. No. I'm just scrolling and clicking a few. Yeah. I don't spend too much scrolling, but stuff like this, I designed these. This is Tim Mrozek's work. I designed these statues for Elder Scrolls Online. This doesn't show. I also did a lot of variations on these statues, like damaged versions, destroyed versions, things like that. I don't know if any of that would pop up in these. Takes me back. Takes me back to old times. Based on Roman, mostly Roman classical statues. A lot of these, the poses directly reference actual Roman statuary that I researched. These were a lot of fun. These took forever. I spent a long time working on these for Elder Scrolls. So these were statues of the various races of Khajiit for the Elder Scrolls Online Elsewhere expansion. And this was a very serious design challenge. There's much more than these two that I clicked here. But this was a very serious design challenge because a lot of these were statues, but really what they were concept designs. I was the only person working on these. These were, what they really were was character concept designs. I was the only person working on these. And for a lot of these Khajiit species, or let's say races, not species, for a lot of these Khajiit races, they had never been visually depicted before. So these were permanent additions to the canon lore of Elder Scrolls. And this was their first depiction. So even though it's a statue, it was the lore version of these races from then out. So this was a lot of work. It was basically designing what the race was going to look like, getting it approved by the lore masters, all while also designing a statue that fit within a paradigm, in this case, Southeast Asian statuary and things like that, mixed with some of the freestanding Roman classical stuff. But you can see that a lot of the design elements and things like this are very influenced by Thai art and things like that, a lot of the decoration especially. These don't have a lot of the like bases and plinths, but a lot of those were extremely decorative, highly ornate, all again based on a lot of Thai imagery and things like that. But so it was like it was doing the approved lore accurate depiction while at the same time designing a statue that hit certain cultural touchstones. So it was a very serious job. And there was much more than these two. I wonder if I can find more. On a quick scroll here. Maybe he has more. No, that's all he's got for... Oh, I did this furniture too. No, I'm not seeing that many other Khajiit statues posted. I did do this furniture concept. Oh, yeah, this is multiple. Oh yeah, all my desks, all my furniture for the furniture set. A lot of desks. These are very cool. I don't think I've actually seen these. I've seen the in-game models, but I didn't see these like nice portfolio shots of these. These are cool to see. I don't know. I'm just going down memory lane. I have a lot of design work that I wish I could post, but I can't these days. I used to have a I used to have a design section on my website, but recently, maybe a year or two ago, I took it off. I changed my website so that it's just my pencil drawings for now. That can change. Steven, can you make a course on how to escape samsara and reach nirvana? You're watching it. You're watching it, baby. Gabriel says, did you see the new unsolicited advice video on the idea that all people are inherently selfish? No, I have not. It's such a good example of disarming a similarly semantic argument for an idea. I got to check it out. Steven, where do you think Plato would place AI within his cave? I don't know. I mean, it's just got to be it's got to be an exceptionally elaborate part of the shadow, right? So... Andres says, damn those NDAs. I'm guessing the course, since it's fundamentals, will work for environments as well. Yes, in the assignments, you don't do any environments. I do give an idea of how you could include it if you want, but it's not a structured part of the assignment deliverables. Basically, if you want to do an environment, instead of just doing a straight up inventory pause screen, you would do a merchant screen. So you would still need to design a character, the merchant, items, either something the merchant is holding, there's no reason the merchant can't have his own weapon or something like that. But you could also, the items could also be the weapons he's selling, right? The UI, obviously you still have a UI going at the merchant screen, but most merchants in most games, it's the norm for you can still see their environment behind them while you shop. It doesn't have to be that way, of course, but that seems to be the norm these days. So if you wanted to do an environment, you could do a merchant screen instead of a pause inventory screen. But again, that's not a structured part of the deliverables and the feedback. So that would just be like an extra thing that you take on yourself. But, yeah, since it's design fundamentals, it applies to everything. You'll see in like the elements of art and the principles of design section, a lot of the art that is shown is like narrative art, a lot of classical art, things like that. There's actually very little showing like concept art where it's just like a character on a blank background. It's mostly full classical art that has characters, it tells a story, there's environments in it. So, sorry, my dogs are barking. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. One second. Yeah, sorry, I was just confirming who's home. But yeah, of course, design fundamentals, when you're talking about line, for example, if you're going to talk about line from a design perspective, all of that is going to apply to everything, not just characters. I teach it on the general level in the elements of art and principles of design videos. I designed those two modules so that they would sort of work for as many artists as possible. Like, I don't talk about video game inventory screens in those videos. I teach it general. It's almost like you could rip those two modules out and put them anywhere, right? So I teach the base concepts in this very general way that I wanted to apply to as many drawers and painters as possible, right? People who want to do still lifes, oil paintings, illustrations, concept design, like just as broad a brush as possible, the core aspects of the design considerations. And then for the feedback module, the module that contains all the assignments, there we go much more specific, and then that's where I put the game overlay on the thinking. Priyankan says, Steven, why is that? Anyone can post the actual assets, but not the 2D concepts. These are actual assets, right? It's just the agreement that they had with the company. You know, when I was working on Elder Scrolls Online, I was a contractor the whole time. You know, I wasn't a full-time I was working full-time, but I wasn't like a hired employee with benefits or anything like that. I was a contractor. So once I'm done, I don't really have any connection with them or pull to sort of be like, give me special permission to have the rights to post the stuff, because it's work for hire, right? It's all work for hire. If you work in commercial art, everything you're doing is work for hire. And once you hand it over, you really have no control or rights to it at all, unless you've pre-written that into your contract. So the 3D modelers, you know, they're actually on the team, so they just have more pull to, you know, they're with their AD in a lunch meeting and they're like, hey, could you let me post maybe these two? And then the AD can go think about it and ask the creative directors and the stakeholders for permission, and then they'll sign off on it. You know, it's just, it's almost always a protracted bit of work, right, to get approved to actually share something that's NDA and considered trade secrets, to get allowed to post that, right? And it's just much easier if you can follow up on that with a friend who's in the office with you than, you know, goodbye, you know, I'm done with my contract and, you know, you're never going to see me again. Jake Lockhart says, this design looks sick. Thank you. Do you visualize the character before you draw it, or do you make it up as you go? I make it up as you go, or maybe you visualize each part as you go. I can visualize if you're the whole, you know, can you picture an apple in your head and people worrying about their aphantasia and things like that. You know, if I close my eyes, I can visualize in my mind's eye. It's not like I'm hallucinating, right? I can also hallucinate, but not when I'm visualizing art. When I visualize something, I can visualize it in great detail. It feels detailed to me. It feels like I'm watching a movie in my head. I have a lot of philosophical thoughts about that. I don't think you're actually, we'll talk about it later. I can visualize it greatly. When I draw, I just react to what goes down on the page or on the screen. I trust that the fact that I am capable of visualizing in that level of detail, I just trust that that's an ability my brain has and it's running in the background. Like, I don't need to sit there and actually, you know, imagine a super textured mummy and then try to trace that out of my head. I don't know how you would ever do that, you know? Ahmed Al-Duri, sweet Ahmed. How you doing, buddy? Ahmed, next time that you see me on stream and you're watching, give me a fucking ring or something. We should talk on here. I wouldn't say now because I'm thinking about going to eat lunch soon, but next time that you catch a stream and you got a minute, just let me know and come on the phone. Let's give these people a real fucking show. A real show. Lax says, Steven, girlfriend just paid for my Patreon membership. Huzzah. Nice. She really does love you, doesn't she? That's proof. That's the only possible proof that a girlfriend really loves you, is if she pays for your Steven Zapata Patreon membership. That's the only way. That's the only way. Steven, what program are you using? This is Leonardo, which I've been having a lot of fun with. You are an experiencer. You are not Steven. That's right, Ahmed. That's right. As I think I said it to you once, many years ago, you're not in the Matrix. You are the Matrix. The more I think about that over the years, it's like, just gets truer and truer the more I think about it. Did I make that up, or am I quoting someone there and I don't know it? I'm sure other people have said it, but is one of those people something I've listened to and I don't remember it? Because in my head, I'm like, I was super high one day and I came up with that saying. I wasn't high. I don't think I was high that day. Goodbye, Charlie. Lack is still waiting for that one A to Z podcast. Maybe someday I'll get it. Victor says, Steven, my boyfriend is paying the Patreon for one of his friends. Should I be concerned about my relationship? Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Roundbrush says, is the paid version better? The free trial brushes are kind of awkward to work with. No, the paid version is exactly the same. If you didn't get a good feel from the trial, don't buy it. Nothing changes when you buy the full version. It just lets you keep using it past the 15 days. Fripp says, I saw your medieval artist performance in Ahmed's course for the first time. It's a work of art. It's not a performance, man. That's just me. That's who I really am. That's me at my core. Molly says, hi, Steven. Do you have any insights on the differences in character design between fields? Like character design for animation versus for games versus for live action development? Oh, I mean, it's huge. It's huge. You just need to do your research. I mean, it's hugely different between even just different games. It's not just like games versus animation. It's like from game to game, the constraints of the engine and what kind of game you're making are going to require totally different types of character design, right? You're going to need to design your characters differently and with different focuses for if your game is meant to be in Unreal Engine 5, which gets very realistic with lighting and really relies on texture to present a level of fidelity. That means that you're going to have to be material indication forward. Unreal Engine 5 is going to rely a lot on realistic recreation of materials. So you got to know your diffuse, your specular. You've got to design in a variety of materials to take advantage of that. And you've got to nail the textures, right? Or else you're missing out on a big part of what makes an Unreal Engine 5 game look good. But there's going to be other kinds of video games made in different engines that are really going to look much closer to a feature animation. It's going to be done more in a style that you might say is more like a Disney movie or a Pixar movie or something like that. And so in that case, even though you're designing a video game, it makes sense to design as if you were designing for a feature animation. So it's not really about any of the individual sectors. There is differences between them, generalized differences. Everything in design really comes down to the project, the project, the project, the individual project. That's why I always say the most important thing artists can do early on is get used to running projects, to experiment with those real constraints that you can't fake, you know? You can only practice it if you're actually doing a dang project. Hello, L200 BPM. Happy to have you here. Gabriel says the difference between designing for TV animation versus feature animation is huge. Huge. I bet it is. I bet it is. Zane says fundamentals are really important, right, Stephen? Or else I'm missing something. Yes, they are, but the problem that I always point out there is that the fundamentals are important, but you've got to know what fundamentals are actually relevant to you, and you need to develop the ones that are relevant to you. The way fundamentals get thrown around these days online, I think that's mostly unhealthy. You know, I don't think every artist is supposed to just dive headfirst into doing a billion cubes and spheres, and they think they need to learn technical perspective and all this shit. It's like, before you've even evaluated what kind of artist you are, no, not a good idea. You need to find out who you are first, what you're actually interested in doing, use that to vet which fundamentals are relevant to you, and then yeah, learn those to the level that you need them. A lot of people learning art online seem to be under the impression that they're not allowed to make anything until they've mastered all the fundamentals, and that is completely wrong and stupid, and is actually only going to fuck you up. Actually only going to fuck you up. You're never going to wind up making anything, you know, because there is no end to learning the fundamentals. They're just things that you return to over and over again. You don't learn them and then you're done. Ahmed's addicted to Balatro. I haven't tried it, but I've heard of a lot of people being addicted. Steven, do you prefer painting with shapes or starting with sketch or line art? It depends what I'm doing, but for anything vaguely designy, like just designing characters and stuff like that, these days I much prefer just going in with the shapes. Because, I don't know, things like this, like I can't think this way starting with line. It's like if a design is going to be focused on material and color and things like that, I just need to see that stuff early, you know? Maybe that's a sign of impatience or something like that, but for me it's like, if I know that's what I want, just putting down black lines, it's like it doesn't work. Because you can't see the values in between and the fields of color and the way that the shapes are interacting. So for that kind of thing, I would much rather just work with blobs where I can actually start playing with those things, you know? Ahmed says, dude, Steven's sick characters, didn't see all of those, damn dude. Thank you, Ahmed. I know that you're fucking lying, that you're actually snickering to yourself right now in your room going, this guy fucking sucks. This guy fucking sucks. He has no idea how good I actually am, and that you're quickly doing a sketch in Photoshop on your other monitor going, I'll fucking show him exactly how it's supposed to. And then as soon as it looks awesome, you're like, I fucking knew it. I fucking knew I was better than Steven. Fuck him and fuck everybody else. I'm the best. I know that that's what is actually going on over there, but I appreciate you saying that you like the characters. I do. Ahmed taught me how to believe in myself. Being around Ahmed is a great education in believing in yourself. Jordy says, wow, Ahmed is ruthless. You have no idea. Do not fuck with him. Do not fuck with him. Thanks, Gabriel. Paladin says, Steven, could you give any pro tip to get together hips and rib cage? Most of the time my drawings look like a version of the Men in Black Worms. To get together hips and rib cage? No, I mean, I don't have any like fast tips. I mean, their interactions. You can find a video on Proko's channel where he talks about their relationship being like two tennis balls inside of a sock. So the two tennis balls, you know, if you twist them inside the sock kind of does this, gets this twisting motion going. And you could sort of use that as like a beginning to think of like the rib cage and the pelvis turning against each other. But beyond that, it really is the basics, you know, learn the anatomy of the two. I wish there was an easier way to do it than that, but learn the anatomy and then learn how to rotate though. Understand what it means perspective wise when they turn against each other. And it really is about turning, opposing them. You know, I often, when I'm sketching rib cage and pelvis, you know, if I throw something like this, I usually don't throw solid schematics, but if I do something like that versus that, to me, the important thing there is that that's indicating that the rib cage is facing this way and the pelvis is facing this way. And this is the foundation of their dynamics. So notice that they are opposing each other kind of in two axes, right? It's not just that one is facing to the left and one is facing to the right. It's also that one is facing more up and the other is facing more down. So the more rotations you can get on those axes, usually the more dynamic things are going to wind up. And then when you add the head, you could try to do yet another axis. You know, maybe the head is more facing towards us in perspective. The trick here is to not go too crazy opposing everything, because then you just sort of get like this swatted fly effect of the figure flat on the page. It's a balance of looking for all of the axes that you can oppose things on, while also finding a little grace, while also finding some arranging grace. How to naturally connect all the meat here is exposure, anatomical knowledge, things like that. I think my wife needed to say something to me or ask me something. I'll be right back. She poked her head in. Every time I reconnect with my wife, the first thing out of my mouth is just, did you break your water? Oh yeah, how's that? Did you break your water? Oh yeah, how's the thing? Did the baby come out? I'm also thinking of doing some Egyptian-inspired mechs that are piloted by mummies. We'll see about that. My mummy dust. Discord says, hey, Steven, what would you tell an artist who constantly needs to remind themselves of the truth of art? Tattoo it on your eyeballs. I mean, that's the best thing you could do. Just tattoo it right on the inside of your eyelids. Never forget. The forgetting is the problem. The forgetting is the problem. What do you think this is? What do you think this is? You think this is all... You think this is all video games and horny waifus? You think that's all this comes down to? You think that's what has sustained art across these many millennia? No, my friend, no. It is the difference between drawing anime girls and drawing anime girls for spiritual reasons. It is that difference. I totally blew out everybody's speakers with that, right? I started piping up. I'm looking at my my preamp, seeing if it goes red. Ramber says, Steven, I shit you not, I am drawing Egyptian mecha right now. You already were? That's funny. That has nothing to do with this actual, you know, all this stuff is for, like, all the characters that are not mechs are for a project. Like, these would not fit in the project. I was just doodling around, and I had the Egyptian form language sort of built into my fingers, and it kind of came out, and I was like, oh, an Egyptian mech would be kind of cool. With a mummy drawing. I just put the mummy right in here, right? There, he's got wrappings on. He's in there in the cockpit. Super baller mummy wraps. Yeah. Totes. Totes. My granddad heard that and whipped his head around. Thanks for that. Drawing anime girls for spiritual reasons. I'm sure your grandfather totally gets it. He's like, yes. Yes, that's the truth I've been waiting to hear all these years. Of course, why did I ever abandon art? I should have been drawing anime girls for spiritual reasons. Nab says spiritual girls for anime reasons? Don't corrupt the Dharma. People will spread a false Dharma. And through this, the Dharma will be corrupted. The only way to prevent it is to know the true Dharma. Oh, that looks good. That's a nice looking sound. Maybe later. Ahmed said, is this project for Egyptian Souls Ring Dark, the Eye of Amon-Ra? Yes, it is for Egyptian Souls Ring Dark, the Eye of Amon-Ra. You got it. I'm not surprised that you knew it. Not Ahmed? It is. Yeah. Deirdre says, hi, Ahmed. She's munching on a salad over here. Ryan says, false Dharma and meme channel only, please. that tickles me. I have to admit that the confluence of niche Buddhist jargon and internet culture that's my sweet spot. I'm so pretentious that that's the only thing I find genuinely funny. False Dharma and meme channel only. Ahmed says hi, and he says super happy for you too. He says, yay. Lax says, Steven, been a long fan, but I still haven't heard you explain why you hate anime so much. What's there to explain? Just look at it. Just look at it. No explanation needed. Shinobi TLB says, hey Steven, thinking about getting the course. How long is the sale on for? Until my child is born. I'm not kidding. Just for the record. Could happen any second. The Village Wise Women say that the due date is the 31st. That's 2 days away. The second that my wife's water breaks, I'm going to say this is very exciting. I need to go into the back of house for the course and change the price. Raise the price. That's the first thing I'm doing as soon as she goes into labor. Before we go to the hospital. I know this must sound like a joke when I say it. So there's no way to make it not sound funny. It is the truth. That's actually what I'm going to do, for real. So the sale will end very soon, but it's up to my son. Gabriel says Deirdre is an S-tier wife name. It's narratively perfect. I think it's S-tier.
What does that mean?
That it's excellent. I don't know what narratively perfect means, though. I think Deirdre's name is Irish, and it means Princess of Sorrows, which I think is extremely poetic and lovely. Your comfort with sorrow is to taste, of course. I don't know if I want this to be like fleshy red skin or if I want it to be like a mask. Karem says, somehow my dead grandpa has heard the words you just uttered. I'm getting reports of seemingly endless parchment paper pouring vigorously right from the inside of his coffin, full of anime girl art. Well, I'm glad that your grandpa got the afterlife that he wanted. And if that's the afterlife you want, I hope you get it. I really hope you do. None for me, thanks, but if that's what you want, I hope you get it. Yuri says, Dr. Zapata, I rely on lines a lot, but it trips me up when I go into rendering digitally. What are the ways that I can retain the qualities of my line sketches while adding on realism? Thanks. I mean, if you're trying to do line work digitally that looks like traditional line work, that's very hard. I mean, the advice, as much as it sucks, the advice that I usually give people here is don't try to do that. Like, really ask yourself, why? Why should I not just draw it on paper? Because digital sucks. It's not sensitive. It's not good. The digital tools are just sort of a necessary evil that we have in our era these days. There are certain things that they do well, like full color blobs, like what you see on screen from me right now. But digital tools are truly awful. Remember, these things are barely a few decades old in the general consumer level. And to the capacity that we're using them as artists, most of the tools are not designed for that. They're very, very crude. The hardware is quite crude. Most of the hardware is garbage, actually. God help you if you buy a $4,000 Cintiq from Wacom. Like, enjoy sending it back in 6 months with dead pixels and scratches so that they can repair it and send you another one that you're going to replace in 6 months again. It's like, it's not good products. It's not good. It's not advanced. It's not sensitive. It's as good as it was when it began in the 80s. It's like Craig Mullins already speed ran all of digital art with the crudest of tools at the beginning, and he made work that surpasses the average of what people are doing today. It did not get better. It did not get better. So really ask yourself, why are you wasting your time trying to make this rather crude, not sensitive tool feel like a pencil drawing? Like, just do it in pencil. There's very few good reasons to fake it. Use digital for what it's good at, doing edits, doing iterations, things like this, right? Like, I love doing digital for when I know I want to look at 10 designs at once, right? This is super annoying to have out on your desk, but use it for its benefits. Don't try to make it copy traditional. It can't. And you will only get it to intimate traditional in the vaguest of ways by tearing your hair out. It's just not worth it. Referring to Craig Mullins' work as a speedrun is brilliant. I mean, it is. I mean, if you do the Wayback Machine to Craig's website from like 1990 or whatever, or just whatever the earliest stuff you can find. You can find versions of Craig's website on the Wayback Machine that are very, very old, where some of the images still work, and they're images that he long since took off his website. And you'll see they still look like marketing art from today. He already did it. He did it all. He did. Craig Mullins built this in a cave with a mouse and a first generation iMac. You know, he did it. It's all ready to ship, would be bought by the company today. Like, we have not added to digital painting. We have added vanishingly little to Craig's oeuvre early in the digital art exploration. It's very much just a crude, not advancing, sort of stagnated design tool, you know. And I think, you know, if you're looking for great artistry out of it, I think most people would be happier doing traditional. If you love designing like I do, then it doesn't matter, right? Then there's great artistry just in the act of designing, and it kind of doesn't matter how you do it. But if you're looking for the artistry, for the sensitivity, for the deliciousness of lines on paper, I really, truly, I wish I could say otherwise, but I really, truly think you're wasting your time trying to do that digitally. You know, you'd use digital for other things, I spend a lot of my time working digitally. I don't hate it. I like it a lot, but you should like it for the things it's for the things it's good at, you know? Ahmed says, Craig Mullins passed the baton to Sakimi-chan, of course. What a chapter. Yes. Yes, Sakimi-chan did take it up. Obviously, we are all still living in Sakimi-chan's shadow. I haven't thought about Sakimi-chan in a long time. It's funny. Takes me back to the days of looking at Sakimi-chan's work and being like, wow, so this is what it takes to be a famous artist. It's still what it takes. Hello, Lena. What is your favorite movie, Steven? Typical guy stuff, you know? Brokeback Mountain, Christopher Nolan's The Prestige. That's it. You look at me. I watched Brokeback Mountain for like the 6th time the other day, and I cried again. I've never watched it and not cried. I, for real, actually, genuinely, I cry every time. All right, something I do want to do before I get off of here is I at least want to write down the design criteria for the other thing that I wanted to do. So let me just pull that up. So I'm looking at some old ESO work to remind me. I'm just trying to remember exactly what the criteria were. Okay, so we're gonna play these off of two different cultures to get some contrast. But the design constraints that I remember here was, so 3 to 4, that's just a deliverable number, right? That's what I have on the final sheet here, which again, I cannot show you because I just can't. And so I did 4 for this level, and there were various levels. We'll do this level first. So I did 4. So the design constraints are they all need to be over the same normal body base. So there was a base mesh for this race, and all of the statues needed to be iterated upon with that base mesh. Obviously there was a male and a female version, but we weren't going to break the proportions of that base mesh. It needed to be the statues, but also they needed to have plinths. So they did need to have bases. So we can't just do the statues. We have to make sure that they work well with their bases. For these, and this is not going to be the only influence because we're going to do another culture as well, but they were Roman influence. I like to pick a more particular thing than just, let's say, antiquity, because there's a lot of things in antiquity, and I don't know, I think when you're designing, you can really start pulling your hair out if you just pick something kind of broad, or at least that you don't have a very specific knowledge of. And then you start mixing references from different eras. And of course, that actually, different eras have different stylistic conceits. So you do actually invite conflicting handlings of things like poses, elements of art, things like that, when you invite in multiple eras. So rather than something like antiquity, I picked for these something more specific, Roman. That way you can just stick to Roman statues and things like that. It's not like there's any lack of research to be done there. And the point of these was that they needed to be seen in 3 different states, which affects how you design them from the ground up. So there needed to be the complete version, that is to say the version that would sort of initially be modeled. That's not necessarily what would be seen in game. But then because these were meant to be ruins, they were supposed to be relics of a bygone era, you needed a damaged version and a destroyed version. So the destroyed version is like almost unrecognizable, pieces scattered all over the floor, but you wanted the pieces to fit with what was in the complete version. And the damaged version was the main version that was going to be seen in most cases. But in order to do that well, you need to do the complete version so that you know what you're breaking off. And the complete version needs to be designed so that it's sort of a layup for things to break off in aesthetic ways. So at least when I did this task for work, I designed the complete statues, thinking ahead to them being broken in 2 different stages. And then I created the damaged and destroyed versions by cutting things off, moving things around, things like that. So that will be the design criteria for that task. That'll be the brief, so to speak. And I will edit it if I remember that there was more to it than that. But right now, I don't think so. I'm sure there was more to it than that, but this was long enough ago that long enough ago that I don't remember. So I'm getting caught up looking at old sheets. Goodbye, Gabriel. And good luck when you go live. Take care. How do you do research for Roman statues? For me, for stuff like that, whenever there's a clear historical touchstone, I don't fuck around on Google. I just go straight to museum websites. That's the best way to do it. So go to like the Metropolitan Museum in New York, go to their website, go to the collection, search Roman statues, do that with the Louvre, do that with any museum you can think of. They have high quality photos for reference. You know, you don't have to struggle against stupid Google images, giving you low res photos and stuff that doesn't actually link anywhere and things like that. And also they know all the data, right? So if you find a picture that you like, it's not just like on Google where often there's no other information. You can read the description and learn historical things about it, interesting bits of info. And it'll also know the artist, you know, so you can search by the supposed artist, right, with stuff from antiquity. So you can find little threads that you can follow to find more work in that style, work from the same years, things like that. But yeah, whenever there's a good historical touchstone like that, museum websites, that's the way to go. If not that, books. Books is always the way to go. The internet is dying for very, very, very difficult to research with. You need to have good Google Fu. You need to know what you're looking for. Vertice says, hey, Steven, have you utilized 3D in your workflow for any professional work? I'm not very good at 3D. I have used it a lot in very simple capacities for environmental work. In that capacity, I've used it a lot. I mean, for tons of stuff. You know, do a basic block out in SketchUp, use that to get some perspective on something. Or maybe there's like a simple shape in a picture that needs a particular material pass, you know, render that in something like a Blender, or I used to use Modo. But even beyond doing my own stuff, in a professional capacity, I was often given 3D models other people made that I needed to work over. So, you know, someone would have a 3D modeler, a real one, had modeled out a space in 3D. They send me the file and I have to navigate it and move things around and be in there taking screenshots and even outputting renders sometimes that I then work over. But that was most of my 3D work. I can't really get something like an environment model to any significant level of detail or anything like that. You know, I can just do rough block-ins. And not the kinds of rough block-ins that actually look kind of fucking cool, like when you see a real 3D artist post something and they say this is a rough block-in. Not that, like an actual, you know, there's supposed to be a statue here, and I put a cube there. an unfaceted cube, just to give me the basic perspective of I'm looking this far up on the statue. But, you know, I'm very good at freehanding everything, so I really only need the most basic guides to be able to kludge something together. Goodbye, Bobby Berninator. Betty Vare says, I heard you recommend museum websites for refs before, and it changed my art life. Nice. Nothing like watching a museum video of an expert explaining how to put a suit of armor on to help understand it. Yeah. Yep. I don't know why. I don't know how. I think it's a thing a lot of people are missing somehow. I don't know. I guess I'm lucky that I grew up in cities where museums were, you know, very good and serious. So I always had it in my mind, even since I was quite young, that museums have very serious information in them. And in most cases, it's better than what's on the internet, right? But that's definitely a bit of my good luck from growing up around a place like the Met, right? Like, when I think about it, it's kind of crazy. Like, other people may think, you know, well, the internet is where I go to see the most famous drawing in existence, Michelangelo's study for the Libyan Sibyl. In my head, I'm lucky enough that in my head, Michelangelo's study of the Libyan Sibyl, I could go see it in person on a day's notice if I wanted to. I have had it placed in front of me alone for no one but me at the Met in a room just for me. Just me and one other person, a custodian. So in my head, the internet's not all that goddamn special. Like, I can go, I know masterpieces live in a building and they get curated in there and you have access to them. And there's good info around them, you know, not the kind of stuff that's on the internet. But yeah, it does change your mind, you know, the first time, you know, if you're lucky enough to be able to do it, the first time that I just called the Met and I was like, yeah, I want to see Michelangelo's Libyan Sibyl tomorrow at 11 a.m. And they were like, all right, your name's on the book, you know, knock on Rosa's door and enjoy. And I just walked down there and Rosa said, hey, you're here for the Sibyl. I said, yep. She's like, all right, sit right there. And then she just brought it out and put it on an easel in front of me. That'll change your brain. That'll make you think, all right, the internet's not all that special. There's institutions that have been doing this for a long time. So yeah, in my head, museums are the way to go. So it was always natural to me that like Google Images kind of fucking sucks. And there's better curated resources for just about everything. So you're saying live less from pictures, but actual tangible experiences? I mean, if you can, you know, that's not on the table for everybody. Not everybody lives in a place where they're 50 miles from masterpieces, right? But as much as you can, do what you can. Randy says, hey, Steven, I'm running into an issue with Leonardo and was wondering if you have this too. When the pen mapping is on pen mode, I have an insane offset. And when it's on mouse mode, I have jagged lines. No, I haven't had that. I don't know enough about Leonardo to know what would be causing that. Sorry to say. I haven't had any mapping issues with Leonardo yet. You know, it's a beta indie program. It has its quirks and things like that. I hope you can figure that out. I hope you can find a solution for that. How much did that cost? Do you mean to see the Michelangelo at the Met? It's free. A lot of people don't know you can do that. Hey, Andy. Good to see you, Andy. I see Andy says, whoa, that's awesome. Yeah, a lot of people don't know you can do that, you know. At the Met, as long as it's not the drawings, as long as the drawings are not on display or obviously on loan to another museum, you're allowed to see them. Everything in the collection. You know, most people are not looking that stuff up, but, you know, there's literally just a number you call. You know, you look at it online, you give them the attribution number or just say which one you want to see. You make an appointment, they do 2 a day, and you just walk down there and they'll pull it out of the collection and they'll just sit it in front of you. You know, there's a time limit on it, usually 45 minutes, because drawings deteriorate, all drawings deteriorate as they're exposed to light, any light, not just sunlight. So they do put a time limit on it, but it's plenty of time to do a copy. And yeah, there's no charge for that. You know, it would only be the charge to enter the museum, which if you're a New York resident, there's no charge for that either. You can go in for free. But I used to do that a lot. You know, I would go home at night and look through the website and see what drawings I wanted to copy. The Met has a lot of Engs, and I'm a big fan of Eng. I copied a lot of Engs in that room, but I would just look at night, pick a couple that I wanted to copy, or maybe even a few, because you could break up the appointment kind of however you wanted. And then in the morning I'd call and I'd give them the numbers and I'd book both appointments, the morning and the afternoon, and I'd just go in and I'd copy for a big part of the day, and I'd eat a disgusting New York City hot dog from the cart out front in between. It was the cheapest food you could get, so. It's a good, basically free art education. It was a beautiful time. All right, everybody. I've been on for about 3 hours now, and I'm starting to get hungry for lunch, so I'm going to start wrapping up here. But I'll stay on for a little bit, answer any last questions or anything like that. So if you have any last questions, you let me know. The last question, you let me know. Do you not do it anymore? It's been a while since I've gone. It's a fun thing to surprise someone with when they visit the Met. It's one of my favorite bits. You know, if a friend is in town, like Ahmed said, I took him to see it. But I like to not tell them it's going to happen. So I like to tell people, yeah, I'll give you a flash tour of the Met, right? And then we go up to the drawing corridor upstairs. And, you know, I'll just be playing it cool, like, oh yeah, look at this, look at that, you know, and then we'll get to the corner where the door is. It's a nondescript door with just a number on it. And I'll knock on the door or ring it and they'll have no idea what's happening. Open the door, prints and drawings archive. And then if I have an appointment, I'll take them downstairs, put a fucking Da Vinci in front of them. And they're just stunned, staring at a Da Vinci alone. Or if I don't have an appointment, the drawings are a little harder. They don't want you to go without an appointment. The prints, because they're less unique, obviously, they're much more open. So I'll just walk them into the prints room, and the prints are much more improvisational. And the Met has some beautiful portfolios of Sargent prints, lithographs that Sargent did of figure drawings. They're what the heck? Why is Siri's ruining my rant here? Shut up, Siri. So yeah, I'll just walk them into the prints room and they're like, what the hell is this? And I'll just ask the people at the desk for the prints. I'll say, can we see the Sargent portfolio? And they'll say, sure, 1 second. They pull it off the shelves, lay it out on a table in front of you. You don't even have to put on gloves. You're just turning Sargent lithographs from back in his day with your fingers, just like, you know, it's a lot of fun. So I haven't gone to copy in a while, but I have been in those rooms and looked at the originals, usually to as a little surprise for people who are visiting. Yeah, man. By the way, if you live in a place where there is a museum around you, most museums consider it part of their responsibility to give access to the collection to the public that supports them. So you should check out their website or call them. Most museums have some way that you as an artist / researcher, but given that it's an art museum, artists count as sort of doing research by wanting to look at the art. You call them and they'll work with you. They want to give access to the collection to people. So check out their website, see if there's a way you can make an appointment for private study. And you might be surprised what they'll let you look at. Like I said, the Met is willing to put history's most famous drawing in front of just you for 20 minutes. So most museums will work with you for stuff that's less valuable than that. When I say we're doing these Roman influence, I'm thinking Roman influence for the poses, but the clothing and all that is not going to be Roman influence because it would be all togas. It would just wind up looking Roman. It wouldn't look like something else was going on. No problem, Ox. My pleasure. Stevlo Blanc says, is that only the Met or any museum? Yeah, I just responded to that. I'm not going to say it's any museum, but for a lot of museums, it's part of their mission to give the public that supports them access to the collection. So it is for a lot of museums. Artistic Spartan says, thank you for streaming, Stephen. Have a good day. Thank you. I appreciate it. Stephen, how does one expand their visual library? Just copy a lot of things. You need to copy them. You're not going to add something to your visual library by just staring at it. Once you're very advanced, you can make a little progress there, but in the beginning, you don't really know what stuff looks like at all. You need to stare at it for like 2 hours to really understand what it looks like, and that is basically impossible to do unless you're copying it. NM Ogtis says, I'm drawing, but off Stevie, I think of you like a dream, bro. Good. Keep thinking of me like a dream. Never make me real, no matter what. Just keep me at a dream's distance. A dream's distance. That's what's good. That's what we all like. Shinobi TOB says, awesome stream. I'm buying the course, and congrats, by the way. Thank you so much for getting the course. I appreciate it. And thank you for the congratulations. You get the course. You get the course and you enjoy it. Oh, you enjoy it. Hi, Joey. Well, Joseph Marziliano. You see, Joe, I have to do my lunch break now, so there's a conflict there. Overlord says, Steven, you're bringing back fond memories of the Met. It was my second home at one point. Yep, same here. I've spent many hours in the Met. It's quite crazy when I think about it, you know? Those are the hallowed halls. I've probably spent hundreds upon hundreds of hours in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's pretty crazy. Stevo Blanc says, now I regret not checking with the National Gallery when I used to live in London. Yeah. Scope out your museums, peeps. Scope them out. Ben says, oh, really? I've been to quite a few, but actually working with a museum would be awesome. As in just working from their collection more than seeing when it's on display. Yeah, yep. Almost all museums, they have a program so that researchers can get access, right? So if you say you're with a university, you're doing a project, they're gonna let you in and they wanna put stuff in front of you. That's sort of like the reason they actually exist, you know, pushing forward academia and appropriately archiving and protecting artwork. The public facing side is sort of how they get funding and attention and things like that, but their missions are a bit broader than that usually. But a lot of museums, if you present a real case, like you show that you're serious, it's not just academics and stuff like that. They do consider an artist wanting to investigate the work a legitimate grounds for research. They consider that research. Magic Bone says Miami has some of the worst museums, nothing but pretentious garbage. Well, yeah, Miami's definitely a center for sort of contemporary art. So if you think that stuff is pretentious garbage, there's going to be a lot of it there. A lot of people are trying to sell there. And there's big art festivals there. I don't know. What do you call something like the Venice Biennale or Art Miami? Is that a festival? A fair. Look for local museums, you know, like, and you see good stuff. This little, you know, the Jacksonville Museum of Art, you wouldn't think it, but pretty good. Something that will surprise you. Andy says, have your dreams gotten more vivid as you got better at art? No, if anything, they got less vivid. I think that my mind is, I think that drawing stuff like, you know, and it is more vivid than a dream, right? It's I'm leaving an actual artifact and like thinking everything through very rationally and conceptually. So if anything, my dreams have gotten more boring. I think that this handles that need for my mind. Kyokusei says, Steven, have you ever noticed that not all HB/2 graphite is made equal? I had a wording experience recently. I noticed varying hardness and darkness between 3 separate HB LEDs and no info online. Helps explain the difference. Help me. Yeah, they are all different. I'm actually kind of, this is funny. This is These things happen in art. I read that and I was like, oh, do people not know that? There is no standardized grading. Each company just grades. HB just means that company considers that a balance between softness and hardness for the graphite. There is no standard grading between the companies. And there's no standard grading even between the different lines of that company. Prismacolor, they'll sell you 18 different kinds of graphite. Their turquoise series, their matte series. They have their blue series. They have all sorts of different series, right? So even between the series, there's no consistency. But definitely between the companies, absolutely nothing. It's just each company says HB is the balance, and B is darker, 2B is darker than that, 4B is darker than that. Same with the H's getting harder. And there's no standard to what those incremental jumps are or anything like that. Yeah, it's very inconsistent. It's not it could be, I guess that theoretically could be a science, but those companies are not, they have no reason to make it like that. What do they benefit from having perfectly consistent hardnesses with their competitors? They get no benefit. Ben says, well, I just asked, I don't know if you missed it, if I buy the course on discount now, will I get feedback if I start it a year or so from now once my uni course ends? Yeah. Yeah, no, the way the courses are structured, it's completely self-paced. So it's like, if you buy it, you get a round of feedback on all the assignments. That's how it goes. If you start a year from now, see you then. The only way that would change is if I changed the way feedback works or if I stopped giving feedback. But if I did that, I would sunset it. So I would announce that that was happening and I would give a long runway. So like, who knows what it would be, but I'd be like, everybody who bought feedback, I'm going to end it, 6 months from now on this date or a year on this date, whatever it is. So get to work and get it in before then. But that is not the case now. I have no plans for anything like that now. But that would be the only way that would change if I sunsetted it. But if I did, you'd have a lot of forewarning. Marziliano Joey says, so who has the hardest lead? Don't say Led Zeppelin. Who does have? I think the hardest pencil lead I've ever seen is an 8H, which, why? The hard leads are much less useful to me than the soft leads. Once you get over like a 4H, it's more you're scratching the paper than leaving any graphite. I've never found a way to make like effective use of those. Bic Nguyen says, what is the soundtrack playing in the background? That is actually, what is that currently? I can only bear it here. It's the Divinity Original Sin 2 soundtrack. It's video game music because video game music is some of the only stream-safe music. Kyokusei says, I must say, I feel strongly about my graphite and I will not stand for this inconsistency. I know. The only way to keep it consistent is to use one line. Just use Stadler's, just use Faber-Castell, just use Kimberly, whatever it is. It never bothered me all that much. I would definitely notice if the hardness of Pentel HB 0.5 mechanical pencil lead changed. If they changed that, I'd freak out. But I also have a huge hoard of that I'm sitting on like a dragon, so I'd be able to draw for many years before I needed to buy new lead. Haith says, so I've been cheated with my pencils? Is that what you're saying? No, it's not cheating. It's just there's no expectation of consistency between the leads of the different companies. Yeah, This is interesting. I guess a lot of people thought HB was some, like they're putting pencils in a pressure tester, and they're sort of like putting a consistent, this is 0.3 pounds of pressure on the pencil tip, and then they're using a lightometer to measure how much light is being bounced off of the dot that the pencil made. They're not doing anything like that. It's a very arbitrary, the company decides HB is what we consider normal. And that HB could be another company's 8B. It doesn't fucking matter. And then they just grade up at random increments from, well, random between the companies. Obviously, the companies probably have some thinking between the increments. They just grade through the H's and the B's on their own, to their own taste, you know, to whatever they think is useful. Lax says, sing Red Diamond Man for us before you leave. I can't remember it right. I'll refrain from singing it because right now I'm farting on what it actually sounds like. And people will try to tell me in the chat, and they'll just write Red Diamond Man. They'll just write A. That won't help. Red Diamond Man. Born from a red diamond husk, emerging into a red diamond world. Here he comes, it's red, red, Red Diamond Man. It's Red Diamond Man. It's Red Diamond Man. It's Red Diamond Man. Andy says, have you played Clair Obscur? I have not, but I was about to say, you know, when the next video game binge comes, it's on the list, but I think that's pretty far with a baby on the way. I think that's pretty far. Thank you, Ben Shepard. Magic Bone says they're eyeballing it. By the way, Prismacolor sucks. Yeah, the quality's down on Prismacolors. The main problem is they don't ship them good enough. They crack inside the wood pencil cases, so there's no consistency to the lead. It's always breaking. It sucks. All right, everybody. I'm gonna go eat lunch. Maybe next stream we will get started on these redos, this pro work redo stuff. Definitely got design thinking on the mind. But drawing mummies today was fun. Randy says, do you currently work at a company? No. Just work for myself these days. Ben Shepard says, I'm glad I stayed for the serenade. Good. All right, everybody. Goodbye to Smooge, goodbye to Kyo, goodbye to Randy, goodbye to Ben Shepard, goodbye to Joseph Marziliano, goodbye to Yuri Huang, goodbye to Bic Nguyen, goodbye to Steve LeBlanc, Daryl Grant, Magic Bones, The Andy Bo Show, Precious The Andy Bo Show, goodbye to Lack Asylum, goodbye to Lore, goodbye to Haith. Goodbye, everybody. Happy drawing today. Good luck with all of your endeavors. May your drawings go well. Goodbye to Board. Goodbye to Alvaro. Goodbye to Ethereal Dreamscape. Goodbye to Discord email. I need a Discord email. Goodbye to Buggy. Goodbye to Scracel. Screacel. Screacel. That's a good fantasy bad guy name. It is I, the imminent, the invincible Screacel.
You forget yourself. I am your master, the great Skriacel. Bend, boy. Bend before the might of Skriacel.
Goodbye to Shinobi. Goodbye to Chris. Goodbye to Buggy. All right, everybody. Peace.